Have you ever walked past a mall that looked wrong? You know the kind: dusty windows, flickering lights behind cracked glass, a single for lease sign hanging crookedly on the door. Maybe you told yourself it was abandoned years ago. Maybe you even pressed your face against the glass, trying to peek inside, only to feel that strange, heavy silence staring back at you. There's something unsettling about abandoned malls. They were once alive, buzzing with voices, laughter, Christmas music, and neon signs. But when the people left, the energy didn't. It stayed behind, trapped between the walls, replaying the echoes of something that shouldn't still be there. They say most malls closed because of bankruptcy, poor management, or shifting trends. But there are others that closed overnight. No notice, no explanation, just gone. Guards and employees told never to speak about what they saw. And when the police went in, they didn't stay long. Tonight, I'll tell you about one of those places. A massive shopping center built in the early 2000s on the outskirts of town, Riverside Galleria. It shut down only 3 years after opening. No fire, no flood, just a series of incidents that made every employee quit and every investor vanish. Security footage was lost. The few workers who stayed silent claimed the power flickered every night at 3:12 a.m., no matter what generator they used. Others swore the mannequins in the fashion district were rearranging themselves after hours. And one janitor, the last man to ever clock out, never came home again. Some locals say if you stand near the broken entrance at night, you can still hear the mall speakers crackle to life, faint music echoing down the empty halls. Others say the lights come on by themselves, just for a moment. So tonight, let's step inside. 3 stories, 3 people, 3 reasons why Riverside Galleria should have stayed buried. Story 1: The Night Shift. When Riverside Galleria officially shut down in 2007, the city hired a private security company to keep an eye on the property until the legal ownership was settled. Most guards refused to take the night shift. They said it felt wrong. The air was too still, too heavy. One man, however, didn't mind. His name was Earl Jennings, 57 years old, a former mall cop who had worked there before it closed. He thought it would be easy money: walk the halls, log some patrols, keep the vandals out. The first few nights were boring. The power worked only in half the building, so he brought a flashlight, an old transistor radio, and a thermos of coffee. He even liked the silence at first. The mall smelled of dust, perfume residue, and damp concrete. Then, things started to move. It began small, a mannequin in the women's clothing store. Earl remembered its position perfectly because he had leaned his flashlight on the glass that first night. The mannequin had its head tilted slightly down, one hand on its hip. On the third night, the head was turned toward the security booth. He laughed it off. Maybe he remembered wrong. But when he came back the next night, the mannequin was standing right at the store's entrance, as if waiting. The air inside the mall felt colder, heavier. Sometimes the ceiling lights flickered, even though the power was cut. The radio picked up strange static, like someone whispering too close to the mic. Earl stopped using it after hearing what sounded like breathing through the static. One night, as he was checking the central atrium, he heard it: footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing off the marble tiles. He called out, "Hello? This area is closed." The sound stopped. He walked toward it, beam of light trembling slightly. The corridor led past the old children's play zone, where a carousel still stood under a thick sheet of dust. One of the horses was turning slightly, rocking back and forth. As if someone had brushed past it, Earl's throat went dry. He reached for his walkie-talkie. Nothing but static. The generator hum in the distance stuttered, and for a second, all the lights went out. Total darkness. Then, a faint glow returned from the toy store window. Inside, a row of dolls stared out. He'd passed that window dozens of times, but now, all the dolls were facing him. Every single one. Their glass eyes catching his light like insects. He muttered, "Jesus Christ," and started backing away when he noticed something else. On the floor, leading away from the store, were wet footprints. Small, barefoot. They trailed down the corridor toward the food court. He followed them, because that's what he was paid to do, but every step felt heavier, like walking underwater. The mall seemed to hum, a low vibration coming from the walls. The further he went, the stronger it became. He could swear he heard faint music, the old mall tune, playing from somewhere far off. The footprints stopped in front of the old information kiosk. On the counter, half buried in dust, lay a child's shoe. He picked it up slowly. It was soaked, cold, like it had been sitting and watered. That's when he heard the whisper, a voice right behind him. Low and dry. "Don't stay after closing." He turned around. Nothing. Just the long, empty corridor stretching into blackness. Earl stumbled back to the security office and locked the door. He sat there for hours, listening to the building creak and shift. Around 3:12 a.m., the same time every night, the cameras flickered on by themselves. He hadn't touched the power feed. The monitors glowed in the dark room, showing different corners of the mall, empty halls, broken escalators, dusty stores. But then he saw something that made his stomach twist, a figure standing in the atrium, motionless, facing the camera that he zoomed in. The face was blurred, but the shape was wrong. Too long, too still. It looked like one of the mannequins from the clothing store, but its head was slowly turning toward the camera. The feed cut to black. The next morning, the replacement guard found the office empty. Earl's jacket was still hanging on the chair. His flashlight lay on the floor, its beam aimed at the door. The security monitors were off, except one. It showed the entrance of the mall. And on the screen, barely visible through the static, stood a mannequin, one hand on its hip, the other holding a thermos. Story 2. The lost child. They told her not to go inside. When the police had finished their investigation years ago, they sealed the main entrance with metal shutters and yellow tape. But when you've lost your child somewhere, anywhere, you'd go through hell itself to find them. Her name was Lauren Hayes. And 5 years ago, she'd taken her 6-year-old son Mason to Riverside Galleria the night it closed for good. The mall was dying then. Most stores were empty, lights flickered, and there was a strange tension in the air, as if everyone wanted to leave but couldn't quite say why. They had gone to buy shoes. Mason ran ahead, laughing, his tiny sneakers squeaking on the tile floor. Lauren remembered looking down at her phone for just a second, and when she looked up, he was gone. Security searched for hours. The cameras showed him walking toward the east wing, but then the feed glitched. A burst of static, and he simply disappeared. No one ever saw him again. The police found no evidence of abduction. No blood. No prints. Just Absence. Lauren never accepted it. She refused to move away. Every year, on the same date, she drove back to the mall and left a toy by the entrance gate, a way of saying she hadn't given up. Then one night, nearly half a decade later, she received a call. A man's voice, rough, uncertain. "Mrs. Hayes, I work with the property maintenance team. We started clearing the old building for demolition. And we found something. A toy truck. It has the name Mason carved on the bottom." Lauren dropped the phone. She drove there in the middle of the night. The gate was open. The man wasn't there. Only the cold wind and the smell of mildew greeted her. Inside, the mall was a ruin. Water stains on the ceiling, shattered glass everywhere, old advertisements peeling from the walls. But she recognized every turn, every store. The shoe shop, the food court, the toy store. She whispered her son's name. "Mason." Her voice echoed back, warped by distance. Somewhere deeper inside, she heard a faint sound, like the jingle of a bell. The same kind that used to hang from Mason's backpack. She followed it. The corridor lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Power shouldn't have worked at all, but fluorescent lamps blinked awake above her, humming faintly. She passed the carousel, where the paint on the horses had blistered and peeled. Their glass eyes gleamed wetly in the light. The sound came again. Jingle, jingle, from the direction of the children's play zone. When she entered, the air grew thick, cold. Toys were scattered across the floor, but everything was coated in gray dust. She saw the toy truck sitting in the middle, Mason's truck, the one he dropped that night. Tears burned her eyes. She bent to pick it up and froze. Tiny wet footprints led away from the truck, down the corridor, disappearing into darkness. Her voice trembled. "Mason? Honey, is that you?" No answer. Only the creak of something shifting far off. She followed the prints, clutching the toy. The air around her seemed to hum, faintly at first, then stronger, like distant music echoing through long, hollow halls. The mall speakers crackled above her head, sputtering static, and then a child's laughter, her breath caught in her throat. She ran toward the sound. The lights blinked out one by one as she went, darkness swallowing her path behind. The last light stayed on above the food court, where tables stood overturned and signs still read, "Closed for cleaning." And there he was, a small figure standing near the fountain, back turned, wearing a gray hoodie, the same one Mason had worn that night. His shoulders were trembling, as if he were crying. Lauren's voice cracked. "Mason, oh my God." She ran to him, dropped to her knees, reached out, and then froze. The child turned. The face wasn't right. It was Mason's, but wrong. Pale, smooth, eyes too large and glossy, like porcelain. His lips didn't move when he spoke, yet she heard his voice clearly inside her head. "Mommy, why did you leave me?" She stumbled backward, heart pounding. "No, no, baby, I didn't." He took a step closer. His feet made no sound. Water pooled beneath him, rippling outward across the tiles. "I waited for you. I waited until the lights went out." The voice wasn't coming from his mouth. It was coming from everywhere, from the intercoms, the air vents, the floor itself. She dropped the toy truck and screamed, running toward the exit. The mall stretched before her, endless now, corridors twisting in ways she didn't remember. Every direction she turned, the lights shifted, blinking red. humming like a heartbeat. Behind her, she could hear small footsteps following. Fast, she crashed into the old information kiosk, knocking down dusty pamphlets. For a split second, the overhead lights flickered, and in every reflection, the store glass, the tiles, the windows, she saw dozens of masons, staring back at her, expressionless. Each one whispered in unison, "Don't stay after closing." Then the power went out. The next morning, workers found her car parked by the gate, keys still in the ignition. Inside the mall, they found only one thing: a small child's shoe, soaked in water, sitting beside a broken toy truck. And in the security footage recovered later that week, they saw her walking hand in hand with someone small. Deeper into the dark halls of Riverside Galleria, the cameras glitched after that, but one frame, just one, showed her looking straight into the lens, smiling faintly, as if she'd finally found what she was looking for. Story 3. The security feed. When Riverside Galleria was finally scheduled for demolition, the construction company hired a team to inspect the electrical systems. They needed to make sure the underground power grid was safe to cut. Among the crew was Daniel Ruiz, a 32-year-old technician who specialized in restoring corrupted security footage. He didn't believe in ghosts or hauntings or anything beyond logic. For him, this job was simple: check the old security servers, extract what's left, and send the drives for disposal. But on his third day at the site, he began to suspect that something was watching the recordings with him. The basement of the mall was colder than it should have been. Power cables hung like veins from the ceiling, some still sparking faintly. The old security room was buried beneath the main floor, sealed off since 2007. When Daniel forced the door open, the smell of dust and ozone filled his lungs. Rows of CRT monitors lined the wall, silent and dark. He connected his laptop to the central unit and powered it up. The fans coughed, the lights flickered, and one by one, the monitors came to life. What he saw first was nothing unusual: empty hallways, broken escalators, the carousel in the distance. But the timestamps were wrong. They weren't from 2007. They were from last night. He frowned. That's impossible. The mall hadn't had power in over a decade. He scrubbed the footage back and forth, watching the static shimmer. The video was low-res, grainy, yet sometimes he could make out movement. A shadow crossing the hall. A faint flicker of light that shouldn't exist, that he thought it was reflection until, at exactly 3:12 a.m., one camera in the east corridor captured something clearer: a person. They were walking slowly, flashlight beam shaking. Daniel leaned closer. It was an older man in a security uniform, Earl Jennings, according to the ID tag glinting in the light. Daniel froze. He knew that name. The report said Jennings disappeared during his final shift in 2007. In the footage, Earl was whispering to himself, nervously glancing around. Then he turned suddenly, as if hearing something. The camera glitched, and for a split second, a figure appeared behind him. Tall, thin, featureless. When the image returned, the corridor was empty. The timestamp flickered again. The date jumped forward 5 years. Now the footage showed a woman walking through the same hall. Blonde hair, denim jacket, clutching something to her chest. That Daniel's blood ran cold. He recognized her too. Lauren Hayes. He'd seen her name in the missing persons archive. In the video, She was crying, calling out for someone. Then a child's voice echoed faintly through the mic, muffled laughter. Daniel paused the video. The sound didn't stop. It was coming from the speaker beside him. He jerked back, pulling off his headphones. The room was silent again, or almost. Somewhere behind the walls, the monitors began to hum. Faintly at first, then louder, as if the building itself was breathing. He reached for the power switch, but his laptop flickered before he could shut it down. A new feed appeared. The timestamp read, Live, 3:11 and 57 seconds a.m. What the hell? On screen, the mall corridors looked the same as always. Empty, gray, lifeless. Then, at 3 hours and 12 minutes, the cameras all changed at once. Every feed showed a different part of the mall, and in each one, there was movement, the carousel turning slowly. A doll standing upright in the toy store. Wet footprints forming across the floor, one by one, with no one there to make them. And then the atrium camera came on. A figure stood in the center of the mall, motionless, staring straight up at the lens. Daniel squinted. The face was blurry, the image shaking slightly. But he could see details, a woman's shape, holding a small hand. Beside her stood a child, looking directly into the camera. Mason. The whisper didn't come from the speakers. It came from behind him. Daniel spun around. The monitor's glow filled the room with ghostly light. For a moment, he saw his own reflection in the dark glass, and then another reflection behind it. A tall figure, long arms, featureless face. He turned back to the screens. The live feed was now showing him, sitting in the chair, staring at the monitors. But the version of him on screen wasn't alone. Something was standing over his shoulder. The timestamp read 3 hours, 13 minutes, and 9 seconds. 1 minute in the future. He jumped up, ripping the power cables out, but the screens didn't turn off. They kept playing, showing him moving exactly as he did. A perfect mirror. Except in the feed, the figure was closer. He stumbled backward toward the door. The handle was ice cold, frozen solid. The air grew heavy, the lights dimmed, and from the monitors, a chorus of voices whispered, "Don't stay after closing." The screen crackled, and suddenly, everything went black. When the demolition crew arrived the next morning, they found the door to the security room welded shut from the inside. They had to cut it open. The equipment was still powered, humming faintly. Though there was no electricity running through the wires, Daniel was gone. Only his laptop remained. Screen frozen on the last security feed. The IT showed the main entrance of the mall. And through the cracked glass doors, in the pale light of dawn, a new mannequin had appeared, dressed in a security uniform. Headset still clipped to its ear. Asterisk if you ever drive past the edge of town, where the highway splits and the fog hangs low, you might see it. A cracked sign half buried in weeds. Riverside Galleria, grand opening 2004. Most people don't even notice it anymore. They say the mall is gone, demolished years ago. But if you stop, if you roll down your window and listen carefully, you can still hear it. A faint hum, like old fluorescent lights trying to wake up after years of silence. Sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, you can even hear the soft echo of music. Some say the power grid under the mall was never fully shut down. Others believe it's something else entirely, the building itself remembering. A loop of time, trapped between the walls, replaying the last moments before it died. Maybe that's why every few months, someone reports seeing lights in the atrium, or a child's laughter over the intercom, or the reflection of a mannequin holding a thermos just at the edge of the glass doors. And one can explain how the security feeds still activate on their own, or why the timestamps never go past 3:12 a.m. So, if you ever find yourself near an abandoned shopping mall and you see the lights flicker inside, don't go in. No matter what you hear, a voice, a laugh, a child calling your name, it's not real. And whatever's left in there, it's waiting for someone to open the doors again. If you enjoyed tonight's stories, make sure to leave a like, comment which one haunted you the most, and subscribe for more true horror tales. Every week, we explore places that should have been forgotten, and sometimes we find out why they never really let go. So until next time, don't stay after closing.